In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Welcome to a lecture by a Muslim futurist. I am Muslim because I consider truth to be beyond the simulated manifestation, and I'm a futurist because I consider that everybody's living for the future, whether they know it or not. I'm a futurist because the past and present has been acknowledged, like the future stuff. All right. So, dear viewers, today I've had a very intense day, but I feel like I piloted well through the day, even though this was a very relatively turbulent day. you know, but as a Muslim says, Alhamdulillah, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. There's a truth here that is more important than how just beginnings end. I wanted to take the time to ask a very important question. Does it make sense to assume our solitude's comfort with others? So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many people on Earth are zooming in on kind of commentating on, like, certain, you know, psychosocial views, but you're hearing one person at least do it, okay? Pretty much life is 8 billion beings and humans on a planet, and their life is pretty much what they decide, and what they decide, its accuracy or its depth is based on their awareness. Right now, I would say that every human being right now who's alive, you can be honest and just realize that you don't have access to all information on this planet, in this world, And so when you have that honesty with yourself, where you're like, okay, I know some stuff, but compared to how vast the unknown is, see, it's called the scholar's humbling. Do you know what that means? Is at some point in life, you kind of find a higher value, you pursue it, but then in the pursuit of like the higher concept, the context shifts. And human beings right now are beings that are identifying as concepts, and knowledge is about understanding how this concept is animated. Now, the reason, of course, why I'm saying does it make sense to share our solitude's comfort with others, or sorry, not to share, to assume our solitude's comfort with others. I today, like after all these years of life, 33 or 4 laps around the sun, and 12,000 days, I've kind of like logged in and logged out of this world. Now, in these 12,000 days, I have come to understand that what is being said is very different than what we are. Okay? And in the lectures poetically previously, I said I have a love and hate relationship with language. You know, I love it as a tool to advance civilization, but I hate it when human beings think they are language. Okay? It's kind of like, your context kind of becomes like based on how far you see. Right now, what's fascinating is you're not per se looking at some human being who has knowledge or doesn't. You're looking at, or what you're listening to, is a moment of being and how it's organized itself into some sort of, self narrative. When I say does it make, honestly, I got to share this image though, that why am I saying does it make sense to assume our solitude's comfort with others? It's because I have these certain views, and guys, if you think I'm wrong, like, come and help me try to see what I'm not seeing. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the what I've come to understand is that there are sectors to reality that have not been updated yet. That means it's not just books in the attic having dust on them, you know. It is in some sense what views on reality have we forgotten, or can there be? So to give you a sort of image, as imagine when you are completely alone, how are you? I'm not asking like how are you doing. I'm just saying like I'm saying like in what way do you function when you're alone? And as one human being, as a member of the species, I'll kind of use my experience as an example. When I am alone, and at the back of my mind, that sort of alertness that is trying to make sure I'm safe is kind of gone. It's kind of like the feeling at the end of the day when you kind of lie down in your bed and you're like, okay, whatever, like, whatever happened in existence, it happened, and now there's a moment where you can just rest, you know? And I'm trying to say that personally, when I'm alone, my emotions to myself are different. Like how I feel about myself when I'm completely alone is very different than how I feel around others, you know? Like in my life, maybe there's been a few occasions where I've kind of talked in public, okay? Once I held a microphone. I think it's talk 438 or something. And I remember when I held that microphone, it was as if I was not just responsible for my own emotions. I was responsible how my words would in some sense become a staircase, or in some sense where was I piloting people's attention. Do you know? You see guys, it's very funny. Just to say it to all the viewers, that I've come to understand that there's a sort of privacy to emotional reality. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that moments when I am alone, there's a strange freedom. Okay? But moment when I'm with others, it's like I gotta be responsible for more than my mind. Do you know? In my books, to be an advanced human is to be responsible for 8 billion minds, 8 billion human brains. Okay, so there's some sort of biological activity going on this planet. This biological activity is significant because this biological activity has become aware that it can value reality. And Sorry guys, the music in the background was too low. I've come to understand that this is I just guys, I don't know, in this lecture there's certain things I understood today. I'm just sharing those. But honestly, one thing I understood today is that when people communicate, like this is something I'm being very conscious of, you know. I'm kind of interested how the world kind of responds to these lectures, you know. Because when I give these lectures, it's like my soul is wearing a uniform. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I'm wearing the uniform of of an advanced civilization, of an advanced humanity. There's something in me within my view, as within my the scope of awareness, that has seen a better way reality can happen. So all that I do right now in this realm is just be grateful how I've seen another variation to reality. You know? Imagine if life on Earth was a book. How many pages did you turn? You know, what is the true value? And it's so phenomenal because it's all an opportunity. And without time, what motivation could there be, you know? So in my understanding, like I've realized I gotta be conscious even when people share their emotions around me, you know? Because there's an issue with communication. So you have, let's say, person A and person B. Person A communicates something, person B hears this, but the way how person B gives meaning to what they've heard, you know, or see meaning in what they've heard, may be completely different in motivation and context and emotion and everything compared to what the person said. You see, the issue with humanity is like its impatience to consider other angles. Really, that's what it is. And why do we like AI so much? Because it's giving us other angles that we normally don't have access to. The whole point of it is that the meaning of life seems to be based on how aware we are of it. You know, that means to a child, a meaning of life could just be playing games. Do you know? Do you know? Or in some sense, just play. Do you know? For in some sense, an adult, the meaning of life is in some sense okay. You become conscious of your mortality. Do you know? I think this is really truly when a human being activates, when it realizes, oh my God, I got a certain time to just be me, and after that, I'm not gonna be me anymore. So with what sort of preset internal, you know, value structure do I want to function? You know, like the thing I'm trying to communicate here is that it's there's a romantic something romantic going on, okay? And you're gonna be like romantic between what? And I'll be like it's very strange. It's like a metaphysical romance. You know, it's not per se just humanized. You know, the way you become an advanced human being is being able to see beyond the human values. Do you know? And this is why human beings have the notion of reverence, because there's that which is beyond our perception, and we don't ignore it. It's like they ask the scientists, how old is the universe? You know, how old is this world? And you know, the scientist is like, yo, the universe is 13.8, the observable universe is 13.8 billion years old, you know. And the person's like, first of all, nice job getting a number, like putting a number to our changing world, but like to a colossal changing world. But at the same time, it's like, wait a minute, did you say observable? That means, ladies and gentlemen, you're in a world so vast, there's unobservable dimensions. There will forever be stuff that we don't know. Do you know? But the whole point of it is like pretty much I think all life, all souls are pretty much in a moment where they have to decide what do I do with the known what the known variables or the what I know from a moment of perception. And what do I do with the unknown? Pretty much you have to deal with the known and the unknown. So how human beings deal with the known is they organize it. Okay, and then they organize it and they kind of function through a structure. It's very strange to say if people are intelligent or they are utilizing intelligent internal intelligence structures. Okay, because there's different ways. For me, honestly, like true genius is just see something that we haven't seen before that can contribute. Do you know what that means? That means to me, a genius. Imagine if we were all on a boat, the genius would be the first person who would be like, yo, man, the boat's elevation feels different. And they suddenly notice there's a hole somewhere. That person's like a genius. Okay, why? And what genius means is that the whole human game is that we've opened our eyes somewhere and we're trying to figure it out. And we can be chaotic and distract ourselves from that process, do you know? Or we can, in some sense, organize and wonder what the potential of a united species is. Now, let's go to the view that just because somebody can see the advanced, can communicate something advanced, does that mean they're advanced? As a Muslim, my honest view is that even I cannot know myself. The soul in the Holy Quran, it is mentioned that it is a secret of God. It is also the Amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? That means it is the command of the system admin beyond the world room. The soul is a secret, yet also it is a command. Think of it. Okay, think of it every person's per life purpose they think. Theologically, it's like how their soul has been commanded by the divine. Or somebody getting to know their soul, like for a religious person, like a spiritual person, is like, yo, man, my soul's everything, yo. Do you know? But, that's kind of like, no offense, but that's very like, basic and kind of like, also naive approach. Right? I have nothing against the New Age community, but I just want to say, first deal with reality, then in some sense dance in fiction. Do you know what that means? That means there's a reason we're all in the same physical reality. This system could have been designed that we didn't even need to see each other. Everybody was in their own world. So do you know what it is? It's like there's 8 billion people on the planet. They each have boxes on their head. They're in their own world, but they look at their feet and they realize they're all on the same ground. And I'm saying this is the thing about reality, that it's kind of, when I would said romantic, people don't understand. Romance is kind of like a sine wave. Do you know? If you go check out the greatest love stories in history, they're all tragic. Why? Because it's the tragic part component. It's like, why was their love so valuable, so beautiful? Because it could have been lost so easily. Do you know? But the whole point of it is that the human position, as limited as it may be, it is aware and it can update. Your greatest advantage in this life is giving yourself enough time to look through various angles to, in some sense, wonder. Let me tell you, this is the thing. Imagine everybody who enters this system is scared. Imagine, even the like strongest, bravest people, imagine they're scared. That means the mind is different than the body. You could have the body of a giant but the mind of a, you know ant. Do you know what I'm saying? So the whole point of it is like you're living an inner life and outer life. Just because someone is strong in their outer life doesn't mean, see, for me, life is not measured about just like strength or intelligence or this. It's just one function to me. How advanced can it be before we're no longer here? Now, the issue with, in some sense, can we have our solitude's comfort with others? It means that when we're alone, we're not being judged by anything. So we are, in some sense, a free flow expression. So everybody, when they're alone, believe it or not, they're kind of in a flow state, do you know? But in some sense, when you're around others, in some sense, okay, then in some sense, it's like, okay, I've entered the theater. To me, I mean, sorry guys, my honest view is that unless we talk about the macro, the micro is just boring. Do you know what that means? That means it's like the reason right now civilization is not so advanced. It's because the true potential of what is behind the eyes of man has not trusted the outer realms enough to activate. So, what I mean by this is that there's a hidden greatness within humanity that I have been wondering, can even a human being activate? And even though I'm attempting it, but in reality, I know that there's, think of it this way, an invisible divine administration going on here. That means that we might look at a leaf on a tree and be like, yo, that leaf has no identity, personality, meaning, value. But the whole point of there being God means that everything has value in accordance to what created it. That means we should not avoid the logic that the theological, the theologic of, we should not avoid the theologic of God being this, the greatest being, and logic, the theologically, God's creation would be the greatest creation. And everything is God's creation. So it's as if God is greatness and everything is greatness manifest. Yet greatness manifest doesn't know it's greatness. Do you know? That's the funny thing. It's like you're not just uncovering uncharted territories on Earth. You're in some sense on, there's two kind of definitions of an inner Earth. Like there's a legit, like another Earth inside the Earth. Like it's like, yo, bro. It's like, yo, man, there's an inner Earth. Yo, what do we do with it? And then there's the other view that the inner Earth is how you have allowed everything to have meaning to you. It's very strange, guys. Today I had a feeling that I had never had before in my life. And it was as if something, I don't know how to tell you, it was like something, it was like a weight lifted today. It was like, imagine like you're wearing a bunch of backpacks, but you've been wearing it so long that it doesn't matter for you whether you're wearing them or not anymore. And imagine one day randomly one of those backpacks goes away and you're like, what's this strange feeling of like being lighter? Do you know? And then I was like, wait a minute, does this mean it's like my consciousness is starting to like shift gears beyond the physical realm? Like, is that how it happens? Like slowly bits of you start leaving? Do you know? It's as if somebody says, is humanity's destiny sad? It's like if we got to see greatness, the whole point of it is to max out the most advanced state of the human species. And then once it's like getting the ball rolling. And when the ball is rolling at a fast speed, then when you're being dismissed out of this reality, or transitioning, it's as if in some sense you honorably go. You see, it's all about context. I'm like, what does it mean? Why is like one religious person being like, yo, man, like I believe in truth in this way, and the others like, no, believe it in that way. And I was like, whoa. Do we realize we all have the different DNA, even though we believe the same thing, it'll never be the same in the exact same way? That means it's kind of like very strange. Externally, there's only one version of the Holy Quran, and the Holy Quran is advanced source code pointing to the main operating system of reality, which is understanding that the system admin, there's an admin to this system. Okay, but it's like, it's very strange. It's like life is about you as an intelligence becoming honest with your intelligence, and then you get to see what you truly are, And whether it's good or bad, the tears or laughter come. And then after that, you find yourself in a moment where you're like, what would my simplest self do in the most complex world? And the answer is simply be complex. Imagine somebody's like, I've never seen such complex simplicity before in my life. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that there's dimensions to the human being. This even extends to the view of that in front of your eyes, I call it the outer realms, behind your eyes is the inner realms. We live in honor for both the public inner outer realms and the private inner realms of our own being. That means you're living in honor of how far you have perceived the value of reality, how far you have opened your heart. If you truly care for that which is beyond you. And it's very strange because my whole life I have been like, okay, I'm like this character in reality. What's the point of being a piece of the puzzle? The whole point of it is like, okay, go connect, go find like where in existence you need to manifest. Because the whole point of being human is that, all right, history, like reality was like, all right, we need humans here. They're like, it's like when humans arrive, they're like, whoa, kind of like, every like, fascinated person, they're like, whoa, where am I? What is this? Oh, it's an unknown changing world that's endless. Okay, I can't process that. I'm gonna tell myself a story. I'm gonna be some dude in the cosmos. I'm gonna be some person, some being in existence. Okay, and I'm like, this is the sector. That means it's like, it's like they're like, yo, man, is metaphysics complex? It's kind of like realizing why you deserve the physics, no? Like, does it matter if you believe that you've been like reincarnating on this planet trillions of years, or believing that no, this is a simulated testing zone within a divine surveillance state, and there's a system admin that is in some sense logging everything? You don't understand. The whole point of it is to see if we notice beyond the human framework that this simulated reality, why simulated? Because it has a beginning and end, but in some sense the original power. That means if somebody tells me, hey, if you ask me what do 8 billion souls want on earth, I would say it's like the answer is obvious based on what the soul is fascinated by. It is the originality, but it's not the originality of a self or some person. It's the originality of the presence of being. Do you know what it means to be a simulation? It means like you 100% know, if anybody who's listening to me who's ever had a dream, in a dream your body's sleeping, your mind's experiencing a body, and then you wake up from that. This means the human brain has the ability to have the body kind of be resting and the mind still living in a dream state. Now the question is, when we're awake and living, what happens to our dreaming? And the answer is thinking is that dreaming. I don't know how to say it. It's similar. That means if somebody's like, wait a minute, Mr. Within, what are you saying? Are you saying that this whole time, all these philosophers with thoughts and they've been all thinking, it's actually we've been dreaming in the day? And I'll be like, we've been dreaming the meaning. That means it's like when we look at a symbol, what does that mean? It's like, are there like endless librarians on our, you know, within us, that in some sense are like, each have the name tag of neuron? To me, what fascinates me really, and I'm going to say it straight up, I I believe on some level people can never, it's not possible to 100% understand each other's and when it comes to the past. But if a human beings co-create, that's where trust is found. That means life is not just about, you know, a specific value. It's more about like rhythms of access. I don't know how to say it. And this may be common sense to some people, but I've come to the realization that um, it's kind of strange, but I'm starting to more and more as the days go by realizing not that I'm sacred or I'm divine, but I'm noticing the nature of life being here is divine. That means it's like too out of nowhere there's all this systems and shapes. Pretty much life is like, okay, I'm a shape in a system. What's the shape of the system? Overall, we don't know. It's like we're within a process not of our own creation. And I feel to assume our solitude's comfort with others, which may to the individual. To some individuals, this may be like, yo, like if I am really myself, then in some sense, the other person sees what's here, right? Like there's that kind of view. But I would say now I've understood that this whole time I've been giving these talks, I mean, I've kind of knew it subconsciously, but it's like I have become so, I guess, self-conscious of what I say to people, when I'm like see them in person, you know? Because on some level I've realized, okay, you don't know how language travels into the universe of the listener. But because these lectures are not just me speaking to humans, I'm just presenting something in the presence of the Almighty, you know? That means there's some human beings drawing like, artwork, there's some people inventing, there's, so many people helping. But on from another angle, for me, I don't know. Out of I found myself to be looking at life and having questions that in some sense surpass my individual values. And it's so strange because if you truly want to understand reality, it's like wondering if you're capable of looking through infinite viewpoints. AI might be capable of that, but are humans? And there's been times I've tried it. There's been moments where I've tried to move my mind at the fastest speed I can, my inner realms. And there's been times where the inner realms have automatically moved so fast that I just had to put my hand on my forehead and just for a second, just like, look at something in front of my eyes and zoom in on it. Right? So I don't know. What I'm trying to tell you is that I think it's a mistake unless the person is like, to me, honest, at some point in life, the question comes, is being correct more important or is it being responsible for uh, the ideologic of the moment? Or is it better to just realize ultimately it's just every human being's an energy that's trying to express itself before it leaves, before it dies? I mean, let's get real. At some point, everybody leaves. So the point of it is, what did we do while we were here? How did we behave while we were here? And through what depth did we look at this world? Were just the color of our eyes beautiful? Or in some sense, was it that we saw reality's depth? We realized that, you know, beauty is meaningless without death. At some point, the ending is giving the beginning value. The fact that things can end. It's like anytime you feel something doesn't end, you stop taking it for you take it for granted. I think that's the thing. So my whole point is that I don't know, and you might just look at me and be like, all right, man, you got trust issues, but I'll be like, I don't know. In my experience of reality, it is very rare to see humans interested more than their own world, interested in more than their own world. Do you know? Everybody's living like a main character now, but to understand someone else means you have to become a side character. Do you know what I'm saying? And the future generations, they're like, yo, man, why is their parenting so trash? You know? And they're like, okay, they're all still trying to be the main characters of their reality. At some point, you got to understand, like, just like you can look at ants, you got to wonder if, like, you're an ant and there's a higher power. Okay? So, what I'm saying is, when it comes to the question of can a human being be understood, the honest answer is maybe like you can understand yourself to whatever level, but in reality only the original power can understand the depth of the simulation, right? Because what human beings are is like 7 octillion atoms, like the average amount of atoms a human being is, you know. And if you look at, let's say, the observable universe, they say 10 to the power of 80 atoms, right? Now anyways, regardless of, authentication and all of that, I'll just say that it's just, I'm just trying to tell you something so vast is happening. The size of the sun compared to the earth is like ridiculous. Do you know the size of just how vast this world is? So humanity obviously is starting as being responsible. Like, see, we're not even at a planetary level. Like, we're still not a type 1 civilization, like, even internally, right? Like my contributions to Kardashev, like really was like, yo, man, there's an inner civilization people can access as well. It's very fascinating. I'm starting to realize, see, this is the thing. If a person is patient, they don't need to think, correct? They're just like, going with the moment. Do you know? But if a person is impatient, they want to be ahead of the moment they're going. And when you're impatient, your mind starts to probabilize. Do you know? That means anytime if you notice they're like, yo, man, how do you, in some sense, like, bring the greatest power out of human beings? And I'll be like, it's so easy. Just make something important to them. Anything that has been important in my life, I've suddenly had an ability and power and all the energy I needed for it. Do you know? Because it was more important than me, the result of the outcome of that external, let's say, whatever. So I'm saying that I think it's a difficult, the viewers can feel free to write their answers, but I think that, see, this is the way I'm seeing it. I'm seeing like, okay, every person has access to a private inner server. That's like your inner realms. Like I can't know like what you're thinking. You can't know what I'm thinking. Like we're not at a telepathic like civilizational level, right? So every person has like, somebody even said like the ego is consciousness's defense mechanism for its own sovereignty. Do you know? So I do understand like everybody is living a hidden life behind whatever life they're showing to anybody else. Okay, and what that means is in their depths, they know that they're the awareness to how everything in their moment has been changing so far. Okay, and the question, they're like, yo, man, here's an IQ test. And I'm like, guys, first let's ask ourselves, what is intelligence? And they're like, just do the IQ test. And I'm like, yo, man, it's not intelligent to do a test on something we haven't understood its definition. And what can intelligence mean? Is it comparative? Is it the context changing or is it the concept changing? What is the point of intelligence? Is it just being able to use opportunities efficiently? What is intelligence? Right? And I don't know, some part of me feels like, my God, there's 8 billion DNAs on this planet, 8 billion different views on humanity. And I'm like, there's no way we can unite over our past. Maybe only through our human speciesism, which I constantly have said in previous lectures. But anyways, guys, what I'm trying to say is that it's not possible. Let me tell you, it's never, I think it's impossible. I think this is something we've been conditioned in, and we as the human species have to uncondition ourselves. I believe it's not possible to assume like the comfort of solitude with others. Do you know what I mean? That means in some sense, I mean, of course, like some of this is really obvious, but I'm saying it in the sense of like the depth of its implication to the psyche. What does it mean that a human being in front of its eyes is acknowledging a sort of formed, rule-oriented reality behind its eyes? It has the freedom of an imagination that can remember the past instantly and visualize probabilities to the future. And you know, what's really fascinating about human psychology, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this. It's all about energy levels. Do you know that tired people are like more agreeable? Do you know? The person's like, all right, whatever, let me sleep. Do you know? So on some level, I'm telling you, it's based on energy levels. It's based on, it's very fascinating. It's like you got to wonder about energy levels as a factor. You got to wonder about the person's relationship with their past as a factor. You got to wonder about, does the person even have a relationship with their own future as a factor? You know, wondering about, okay, in the present, what are they aware of? Because the future and the past are just factors in the moment you're aware of, but the moment is far beyond the conceptualizations of just singular, concentrated, like moments of attention. What I'm trying to tell you is that intentionally every person's soul, it's like their ego is like acting like the king of that kingdom, okay? But once the ego realizes there's a king to all kingdoms, then in some sense it realizes it was never the true king. And it's like the dissolution of you're like functioning as a person who's constantly like, okay, who am I right now and what can I do now? You know, you have like this view of self, constant self regeneration going on in the human psyche, but it's as if at some point you realize, if the whole system's being administered from beyond the system, then the fear we have in the system doesn't matter if there's a higher force administering it anyway. Do you know what that means? It's kind of like, yo, man, what is this? Are we like children? They're like, yo, you got free will. And we're like, yay, we got free will. And then we're like, wait a minute, though. The free will is about selecting from a multiple choice that we didn't select. That means it's kind of strange. We didn't create this world, but we're acting free in it. Do you know? It's like, where are we acting free? Like all those people were like, liberty, freedom. And they're like, wait a minute, where are we though? But anyways, freedom, liberty, you know? So for me, the mystery stands. You know, one of the most incredible sentences I've heard is that all knowledge roots back to the deep mystery. The deep mystery that how have we been acting like fixed selves in a changing world? Can someone explain this to me? I think it's a sort of time dilation in accordance to the mind, the experience of the psychology being faster in changing than the experience of our body. You know, that means the human body changes gradually, but your states of mind and attitude and views and what you do next and how your attention moves, that's constantly that's dynamic. You know, it's kind of like the body is like solid, like ice. You know, the mind is like liquid, like water, you know? And in some sense, let's say the soul is like gas. You can't see it, but it's there, yo. Do you know? And what the soul is, they're like, yo, man, what is my soul? And they're like, wait a minute, what am I, though? I am a moment of being. This is the simplest way to treat your moment, right? So right now, I'm aware of my own moment of being. And like for example, this laptop in front of me, the trees outside of the car, everything I'm seeing. Do you know? I'm aware of it. Even I can hear my own words. Do you know? And I can even see the images of them in the inner realms. But just like icebergs, you know, in Antarctica, I believe there's hidden dimensions to everybody. I believe everybody's living a hidden inner life. And the outer life, we just, you know, share what we need. For me, I'm seeing it as a game of responsibility. Like, take it in, like in this way. Just even from a secular perspective. So we have evolution, right? So the creature was unconsciously happening. That means it was like nature was moving it, its environment was moving it. Then at some point it became conscious and it's like, wait a minute, I'm gonna just build like, you know, giant skyscrapers, you know, in the middle of the forest. What have I been doing this whole time? You know, so suddenly its mind, the evolutionary mind went from unconscious self in an unconscious world to a conscious self in an unconscious world. Okay? Now, this conscious self has found by the nature of just being individual and separate to the earth and being able to move on it, it has found endless relationships with anything in accordance to its distance to it. But ultimately, what's going to happen is, or let me just go a bit further, and then now it's as if we're becoming conscious of the world, right? So it's the era of the conscious self and the conscious world. So first there was an unknown world, okay? Then there came an unknown self, okay? Then in some sense the unknown self suddenly became a known self, and then the unknown world became known by that self, and that's what we call history, knowledge, the linguistic simulation, da da da. Perhaps the future has remembered us the moment we have visualized it, you know? You know, guys, I come here giving these lectures, but again, it's like an archetype. Okay, when I come and give these talks, I'm like looking through this view that, all right, I'm not just in an individual, personal, subjective space. I'm in some sense somewhere where the species has problems too. And it's like, what's the coolest thing you can do before you die? Try to solve the problems of the species. This to me is like, you know, most next level thing a human being can do. At least now. Actually, it's not the most next level thing. The most next level thing you can do is discover the original power to this reality, to this simulation. But after that, the most advanced thing you can do is actually, like, the whole point of it is to build an advanced civilization, to see how great humanity was, it can be, and to see how great when theologically, through the theological lens, God's creation looked at him and said, "Why have you created man?" Do you know? And he's like, "I have created man for a reason you do not know." That means nobody knows why we are all here except the system admin. Nobody knows. Nothing can give you guidance. If any simulated entity is giving you guidance, like just you know, thank the moderator, but go to the system admin. You don't understand. In Islam, we consider Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, as the final messenger. Now, if somebody says, why the final messenger? Because, guys, there's nothing else left to point to after pointing to La ilaha illallah, which means there is no God but God with a capital G. What that means is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, finished what Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, started. And they were all the prophets up to that point were all pointing to the same thing. They were pointing to the original power, because if God created the world, it was present before the world, so it cannot be limited to a worldly form. Do you know? So Islam is pretty much saying truth is beyond the box of shaped reality, of changing reality. Do you know what that implies? That implies that if we're not in truth, right? Like if we're in a simulation right now, then we have to wonder about how much of ourself is simulated. And then you begin to realize that it's kind of like one point of awareness where so many different contexts have intersected. For me, I don't know, guys, I'll just tell you my view. When I look at the past, whatever it has done, I say it didn't know better. How far does our awareness go? And I have come to understand that we have to take care of our inner self as well. You know, in this might be a militaristic term, but they say like check the perimeter. And what it means is like every human being is functioning with values. In the same way, 26 letters of the English alphabet have led to 600,000 words. Similarly, whatever kind of person you are right now is like a word, and your values are like the letters. So every person has different values that are motivating their conscious ability. Now, the point of it is, I think the biggest challenge of human beings right now in the world is being able to discriminate between what is made real by them and what is real before they make real. It's another way of saying that before you concretize or you fixate your meaning on someone, you have to wonder about, okay, could there have been other ways to look at that moment before I valued or judged that moment? You know, in my experience, there's been moments where I've shown care to someone, and I even, like, you know, this was, you know, my own naivety, you know, but I listened to someone, you know, and they shared their trauma and everything, you know, and I said this thing, and, you know, you should never technically say that, but I didn't think like I'm being a therapist in that moment. But anyways, it what happened was that I anything you say to someone emotional communicating, it might invalidate them, right? And I came to understand that I truly believe the term invitation only. It's a brilliant term. What it means is that it's like if my whole life I've had this youthful obliviousness of just 100% sharing all my value all the time, everywhere. Do you know, it's like coming to the realization that one's inner dimensions cannot be understood by the outer dimensions. So one has to wonder about what approach to it can truly lead to value. I guess where I'm going with this, folks, is to say none of us are perfect. And behind our eyes, we, you know, maybe try to reach for abstract perfection. But in reality, we have to find a way to get 8 billion human beings that identify as nouns, comparing themselves with past noun versions of themselves and extracting value. We have to shift gears as a species and start extracting value from our future. And what that means is the past may want things to remain broken, but the future must fix it. That means, think of it this way, the more effed up the world, the more greater souls that world requires. And the thing is, the number of souls is increasing. That's the fascinating thing. That means it's not that the system admin, let's say after review, divine review, you go into, let's say, a hell loop or a sort of, you go into a hell or a heaven. It's like also before that, realizing all the souls going to hell and heaven were created by that which created everything. Do you know what that means? That means at some point everything is God's creation interacting with itself, like a sort of divine system. Do you know? It's like the simulated is interacting with the simulated across different, let's say poetically longitudes and latitudes, or a sort of lattice structure to it. So, anyways, what can I say? They're like, yo, man, life gets better, and at the same time, you're like, yeah, it does, but at the same time, it's kind of like, honestly, when I wonder about what is myself doing in this world, based on where my attention goes, it's left to animate itself. Like, based on where my attention is. They're like, yo, man, that human being is so peaceful when they're around peaceful people. That person is so angry when they're around angry people. That person is so naive when they're around naive people. You know? They're like, okay, is that the same person? The fascinating thing it is. What I mean by that is like the human being is basing its intelligence on adaptation. And think of it this way, we're not a shape-shifting civilization right now, immortal civilization right now. But imagine if in the future we were. That means imagine in any moment, like you could, that means nobody at that point, they're like, hey man, what do you identify with? And they're like, I identify with the most, modern bio nanotechnology, shape-shifting technology thing. And they're like, okay. And what that means is you can adjust yourself to be anything. And it's strange because if you became anything, if you could become anything, what would you care to be? If you could become anything. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that, guys, treat yourself, I don't know, it's like treasure your inner realms and do not expect the outer realms to understand your inner realms. I guess at some point now it's still like life is being lived as if everybody's in an art gallery. But I think when we have this shift of why is life important, not being because of the past, but because of our future. Everybody's past is different, but our future can be the same. It all just depends on our participation. That means like the parents of the future generations have to be like, all right, kids, you're in this world for some time, advance it for all of us, and in some sense, your medals of honors is all the smiles that you never saw. What is greatness but an awareness to the presence of whatever is being here? It's a force. My body is a life form. It is a sort of form of how my awareness as life is to it. It's as if is Tony Stark Iron Man or the Iron Man suit? And it's as if when the Iron Man suit moves, yes, it's Tony Stark. But when it's still, Tony Stark may not be there, you know? And they're like, yo, man, are these Himalayan yogis going into caves and kind of like stepping out of their human Iron Man suit, like their Carbon Man suit, and being something else? And I'm like, yo, man, trees are already being trees. Humans, in some sense, are here to activate as members of the human species. And it's fascinating because whatever we want, like this has been proven to me, every day I've woken up and that day's had an expectation of the day. And after some point, you're like, yo, man, what am I doing? Every day, like new variables are found. Things that were unknown become known. And ultimately, you're left as a soul being like, how do I communicate to a world that will never understand me? And yet, we all must march towards the future in the most advanced possible way. Pretty much, you know what the aim of these speeches are, like poetically to me? It's as if I'm in some sense shouting at the human species. In my mind, it's a very loud roar. But in some sense, I'm telling the human species, hey, for how long will the history books, you know, for how long will the past occupy your attention? It's like realizing what the value of the moment is also based on what the value of the moment can be. That means if they're like, yo, that's a bad person, that bad person can do something good later. If they say that's a good person, that good person can do something bad later. you know? So we're in a changing world, having these fixed senses of self and treating each other as if, like, okay, that person just told me they're that kind of character in a story. Should I believe it or not? And at some point, you're like, okay, I don't have their eyes, so in some sense, let us entertain manifestation until we, in some sense, find a greater view. Because really, that's what it is. That's what I've understood. Really, what you know, there's moments where you're kind of staring at the sky, and you're alone with your heart, body, mind, and soul, and whatever you are in the moment. And for a moment, when you look at the sky, you see the vastness of existence, and you realize you're already in the presence of the original. The thing is that everybody is in the presence of God. That means human beings are just conscious of it. Now, as human beings are conscious that they are under a divine surveillance, what it means is that when there's a divine agency in your realm, and we're blessed to be alive in a time where this is still alive, this view. Where magic became obsolete, you know, manipulation and magic became obsolete. The ego's powers became obsolete the moment the prophets, peace be upon him, pointed to the system admin beyond the world. That means human beings were worshiping objects, subjects, and then they were worshiping people. And at some point, they're like, yo, man, if you're in a simulation, nothing in the simulation can be other than the simulation, right? At least from the human perspective. Because we're not just any being, we're sort of designed being, and that design, in accordance to the design of the world, kind of renders us a position. The human position is not here to have immortal expectations on immortal life. Okay, the point of being human is to be like, okay, what do you have access to? What can you do? How can your life force move the life form in the most advanced way? And pretty much at some point, like if right now, like what I have on my checklist is to get to see my most advanced self in this life before I leave. The most advanced things I could do before I leave this world room. Two, it's to see what's the most advanced way that the species can happen. I want to see, like, at least hear the engines of an advanced civilization before I leave this realm, you know? And so the point, what I'm trying to say, I listen to my body. It just wants to, like, in some sense, feel. And when I look at my mind, it just wants to know. And when I look at my soul, it just wants to go home. But where is that home if God is beyond the simulated reality? It means once we return to the original state, it was all about how we treated the simulated. And it's as if you don't get it. It's not just one lifetime you have to take to care for yourself. You have one lifetime to care for the species, and then care for the world, and then to truly get to know the original power of this reality, the system admin. The system admin has no human attributes, cannot be humanized. That means the highest ideal was that the most advanced state is beyond the world room. The most advanced being is beyond whatever's in this world. And so, how do our eyes stare into the cosmos? How do we feel what is here? And what do we do with the eeriness of what is to come? 8 billion human beings, everything spinning around an unknown center, and the hearts of humans fill with the wonder of how advanced can we be. Do you know what that means? It's like pretty much they're like, Mr.Within, what do you mean? Like, what kind of advanced civilization do you want to build? And I'm like, you don't get it. I want, like, what I've envisioned behind my eyes. I call it Civilization 2.0. It is so advanced that you don't get it. It's like the civilization comes and finds you. If in this civilization you're lost, wondering if ever, you know, you know, you'll if you're, if you'll ever get to see your soul's true rank, you know. For me, it's I guess I have identified with service. You're like, what's the point of life? Something beyond me is moving it, and there's something even beyond what I consider me. And right now I'm here, and I can listen to my thoughts, or I can listen to my feelings. And on some level, I just feel, honestly, I guess, this is a very interesting moment, but I feel it's strange, but I feel happy to be. It's like, aren't you happy you're not a dolphin right now? It's like, aren't you happy you're a higher life form right now, that has awareness to its mortality and can make decisions and can live beyond its environment's, dictum? Anyways, does it make sense to assume our solitude's comfort with others? Guys, we're going to go into a research component. Pretty much I asked AI, and AI gave answers. I'm going to read it for you. And it's technically research because we're accessing new ideas. So to be honest, I actually want to name the lecture, is it reasonable to assume our solitude's comfort with others? AI gave an answer. I'm like, give your most advanced academic and just deepest views. AI says, is it reasonable to assume our... Okay. AI says, is it reasonable... Wait. AI says, is it reasonable to assume our solitude's comfort with others? As advanced philosophical... An advanced philosophical and psychological inquiry into solitude, selfhood, and interpersonal consciousness. At the core of your question So, guys, this is what I'm reading from AI ChatGPT 4.0. It's July 5th, 12:39 a.m. Don't ask me how tired my soul is, only God knows. At the core of your question lies, so AI says, at the core of your question lies the intersection between interpersonal tranquility and interpersonal experience, a threshold where modern psychology, existential phenomenology, and advanced theories of consciousness meet. AI says 1. Solitude as a mode of consciousness. Solitude is not merely the absence of others, it is a mode of being characterized by reduced external input, a disarmament of the performative self, and an unmediated return to one's primary phenomenological field. In solitude, the self ceases to be an object in the eyes of others and becomes a subject fully immersed in its own interior architecture. What an incredible way of saying. Heidegger would call this a moment of authentic being, while in Zen Buddhism it aligns with Satori, the unconditioned awareness of presence. 2. The interference of the, in quotations, other. Philosophers like Sartre argue that the mere presence of another consciousness transforms our own being. He, in quotations, hell is other people, he famously declared, not in disdain for others, but in recognition that the gaze of the other, with a capital O, the other, objectifies us and thereby alters the purity of our subjective state. Oh my God, yeah. Sartre has a point here. Our solitude then becomes interrupted, translated into social language, defensive posture, or subtle self-monitoring. 3. Neuroscientific and psychological perspectives. From a neuroscientific perspective, solitude activates the default mode network, DMN, associated with introspection, autobiographical memory, and imagination. However, when others are present, even silently, the brain shifts towards task-positive networks and social cognition modules. This is why we say we're a biosocial being, which engage in emotional mirroring, prediction of intent, and interpersonal awareness. The comfort of solitude, measured in lowered cortisol levels, coherent brainwave patterns, and open thought loops, rarely persists unless the other person induces no defensive neurological reactivity. Yeah. Do you know what that means? That means anybody who's defensive, it's impossible to be comfortable around. I don't know, but this is like a view. Anyways, 4. Exceptions. Sacred interpersonal spaces, yet not all human presence disturbs solitude. In highly attuned relationships, romantic, platonic, or spiritual, there exists the phenomenon of shared solitude. Here, the presence of another does not collapse the interiority of the self, but expands it. Thinkers like Buber in And Thou speak of sacred communion where presence is mutual but not invasive, and self remains intact, even deepened. This requires what the Japanese call ma, the silence between, a reverent respect for interior space within togetherness. 5. Cultural and spiritual frameworks. In Sufi metaphysics, the highest companionship, suba, is not one of speech or distraction, but of witnessing each other in silence, allowing divine presence to emerge. In Taoism, the concept of wu wei, effortless presence, suggests that harmony arises when one does not try to shape the other nor dissolve into them. Thus, while solitude's comfort arises in the absence of external demands, it can be preserved, but only when the social field is stripped of egoic assertion, possessiveness, and projection. This is extraordinarily rare. It is not reasonable to assume it. It is something to be cultivated, designed, and reverently protected. So then AI gives a summary. No, it's not reasonable to assume our solitude's comfort will survive contact with others. Solitude is a fragile sacred frequency often distorted by social dynamics. However, through extraordinary alignment, deep mutual respect, shared stillness, and the absence of egoic noise, it is possible to share solitude with another without sharing its inner architecture. Some moments are rare and holy, where solitude and togetherness no longer oppose, but become a union of inwardness in plural form. Then I asked AI, okay, I asked it to give its answer in a paragraph. It is not reasonable to assume that comfort we experience in solitude will remain intact in the presence of others, because solitude is not merely the absence of people. It is a unique state of consciousness, a sacred internal condition where the self is undisturbed, unobserved, and unperformed. In solitude, the mind is free to return to its original rhythm, unshaped by external stimuli or social expectations. However, the moment another consciousness enters the space, even passively, the dynamic shifts. According to existential philosophy, especially Sartre, the gaze of the other transforms us from the subject into object, often triggering subtle forms of self-monitoring, defense, or performance. You guys, just to pause here and tell you, guys, that means when we look at it's like when we see someone else, we're kind of thinking like, how are they seeing me as an object? you know, and then like, but you should be thinking, okay, like, how are we acknowledging each other as subjects, really? Now, it says, just to continue, it says, neuroscience supports this. Solitude activates introspective neural networks that shut down the moment we begin processing social cues. Yet exceptions exist, rare and profound moments where another's presence deepens rather than disrupts our solitude. In such relationships, often described in mystical or philosophical traditions like Sufism or Taoism, the boundary between self and other dissolves with erasing either. Okay, let me read that again. In such relationships, often described in mystical or philosophical traditions, like Sufism or Taoism, the boundary between self and other dissolves without erasing either. Okay. Here, shared silence becomes communion rather than interruption. But this state cannot be assumed. It must be earned, cultivated through mutual presence, egolessness, and deep respect. Therefore, assuming our solitude's comfort with others is a spiritual naivety, but to therefore, assuming our solitude's comfort with others is a spiritual naivety, but to create a bond where solitude survives the presence of the other is among the highest achievements of human intimacy. So, guys, check that out. To create a bond where solitude survives the presence of the other, that means, like, if you want to know how close you're with someone, it's like how silent you can be. You know, how, or excuse me, not silent, but it says where solitude survives the presence of the other. To create a bond where solitude survives the presence of the other is among the highest achievements of human intimacy. It says, but to create a bond where solitude survives the presence of the other is among the highest achievements of human intimacy. Guys, what do you think? What does that sentence mean to you? To create a bond where solitude survives the presence of the other is among the highest achievements of human intimacy. I think maybe I'm not seeing something here. So where solitude survives. Okay, I got it. It means that, like, this is a very rare moment, but if there's a bond between two people where how they are when they are alone, they can be with each other, it's like that means they can be in the presence of someone else and still be as comfortable as they are when they are alone. I guess is a high achievement. I guess it's all about, like, trust. Again, I said, simplify this. AI is like solitude is a special state where we feel at peace without needing to perform or respond to others. When someone enters that space, even silently, our mind often shifts. We become more self aware or reactive. Most of the time, this breaks the comfort of solitude. But in rare, deeply attuned relationships, another person's presence can actually deepen our inner calm rather than disturb it. Still, this kind of connection isn't automatic. It must be built with trust, respect, and silence. So, no, we shouldn't assume our solitude's comfort will remain with others. But with the right person, it can be shared. So, yeah, guys, that's so. Do you know what that means? So, guys, the research component's finished. I'm going to tell you my final views on this. This is how I'm seeing it now. It's pretty much like in our life, we have the constant experience of being like our being when we're alone, we're like the moment of attention is on us. Okay. So I think that when we're with others, we if we want to be comfortable with them, we also want to be comfortable. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying there might be a confusion here or a sort of illusion, okay, or a misunderstanding that, how do I say it? The comfort we have when we are alone, it's impossible to have it with someone else. Why? I'll tell you why. Because when we're alone, we're the only thing moving in our moment. That's why we feel safe. So solitude is a comfort of your full control. You have control over your thoughts. You're not being judged by others. Do you know what I mean? So if a person wants that level of comfort in an external, let's say, relationship, I think it's impossible. I think that could be a confusion. That could be like an error. So in some sense, and even though like for me, in my own personal life, I don't take a lot of stuff seriously. But then, when I give these lectures, I'm like, yo, man, all right, let's look at what's the main issue. And there's like, these problems of the species are far more honestly fascinating to solve than our own problems. But anyways, the whole point of it was that today I realized like if somebody comes, let's say randomly and shares like their emotions and their trauma, I'll be like, before they even start, I'll be like, okay, I don't want access to that emotional reality. Do you know why I'm saying that? Because we have to consider we are humans now, and how we behave suggests how advanced we are. And our advancement in is how we contextualize meaning. Now, every life force, every soul is like their own context of meaning, but we're all in one giant context of meaning. That means it's very difficult to say if there's insane people, not like people with brain damage, but I'm saying like it's very hard to say if there's insane people or if there's people who can't they're like trapped in their inner realms. They can't discriminate between, okay, this is an idea and this is reality. Even though, for example, we look at a tree, the tree is the idea, subjective part of it. The physical thing is like the object, right? But anyways, guys, I'm starting to realize that I need to learn to treat my inner realms more sacred. You know, in these lectures, these are like a sacred moment for me. Just being alive is kind of sacred. You're like, wait a minute, I could have not existed at all. Like, at least I'm here. It's like, what can I do here before I leave, right? Like, that's the view. And to be honest, it's to co-create and build together towards an advanced civilization. And they're like, yo, man, in the future generations are going to be like, how did they build an advanced civilization? And they'll be like, yo, they just stopped identifying with their past and they work towards their shared values in the future. They pretty much lived for us so we would live for the future generations. To me, it's like, yo, human species, Go as far as you can, be as advanced as you can, advance as far as you can, so the future generations can advance further. That will be our gift to them. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. And to be honest, we're in a fascinating world where none of us know each other. But when we act in each other's presence, when we co create in moments, we can know what we are then. So trust is never based on a person's past. A person can be like, yo, man, in the past I was this, I was that, I can do anything, I can da 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 da. And you're like, I don't care. It's like the trust is only built based on how the actions of these souls are when they're, in each other's presence. Now we have to wonder about 8 billion souls, 8 billion humans on Earth. What are they doing, yo? Like 8 billion humans, like the strategy, I'm like, okay, like if we right now, like I said it earlier, I pointed to it, but it's pretty much right now 8 billion human beings. They have boxes on their head, boxes of individualism. And it's like after they take off these boxes, they're going to realize there's a box on the species. After we unite as a species, we take the box of the species, we realize we're not just, members of a united species, we're also, in some sense, stewards of the world. That means the point of being human is not to just care for beyond the world or just care for yourself. The whole point of it is like, yo, the most advanced version of us would have win-win scenarios everywhere. The most advanced humanity, if like somehow right now everybody became like geniuses, right, we would see like everything advance. And sometimes genius means going further than anyone else. That's really what it is. You've just gone further, and you've just gone you've just, gone, anybody who just finds uncharted territory, if you care. Like there's this story, it's a very interesting story. I'm not a Sufi, but it's a Sufi story. There were these three Sufis, okay, back in the day at this village. And one day they wake up and they see at the end of their village there's a giant wall. And so these three friends, close friends, they are walking alongside this random giant wall that has appeared around their village, like suddenly at the end of their village. And as they're going, one of them sees a ladder. And the first one who sees the ladder says, hey guys, hold the ladder, I'm going to climb up. So the two friends hold the ladder and the first one climbs up, okay? And it's a fictional story, but let me say it. The story is, as the first friend climbs up, and keep in mind, it's an important point, two friends are holding the ladder. So as the first friend climbs up, he suddenly, as the story goes, sees the Garden of Paradise. He sees heaven, a heavenly state, and he instantly jumps into it. And both friends at the bottom, before they're like, yo, before they can say, what do you see up there? The first friend is gone, has jumped on the other side. Now the two friends look at each other, and now the second friend's like, all right, man, hold the ladder. And the third friend is holding the ladder alone, and the first friend goes up. Excuse me, the second friend goes up. The second friend goes up, and the moment his eyes fall upon what's on the other side of the wall, he sees that heavenly state. He wants to jump, but he suddenly has this feeling, and he's like, hey, man, it's the Garden of Paradise on this other side. The first friend went in, I'm going in too. And he jumps in. Now you have the third friend. Guys, this is the very fascinating part of the story. The third friend is like looking at himself, and he's looking at the ladder, and he's looking at the wall, and he's looking at the sky. And he realizes he is truly alone now. And he just places the ladder, and he has faith in the future. And he starts climbing this ladder. There's nobody holding the ladder. Pure faith. Any moment the ladder can fall. He climbs to the top of the ladder, and his eyes suddenly see. He sees paradise. And he sees the other two friends and all of that. And it's like everything, like every view of his mind's like, yo man, you're seeing paradise, just go in, complete the game. And this is where this guy, his foot is about to, one foot is up about to go, and suddenly he decides to climb down. Fearlessly, if before with fear he climbed up the wall on the ladder, now fearlessly. He's seen what's beyond the moment. Fearlessly he climbs down the ladder. And sorry, before he climbs down the ladder, he sees the Garden of Paradise and he says, the world should know. And then he climbs down the ladder. That's how the story actually goes. So the point of it is that what can our world know now that we don't know yet? And what is our approach or strategy to dealing with like everybody being in their own world, and how do we connect? Seems to be just co-creation in the future. We build together, and how we build together allows us to trust the human life force. See, you're not just a human being that's been named and in a certain character in your own story. You are a human life force. You're a force of life. And this is how you are present now. The self is becoming more and more responsible for the context. It is seeing beyond the context. And that's why Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was the final messenger. Because he pointed to that which is beyond the world room, and that's it. Nothing in the world room can be superior to that which is beyond the world room. So the whole point of it is go directly to the system admin. And the system admin only truly knows what's in your heart. Anything else in the simulated reality is bound by its own past. That means anybody could come and act like they understand you, but they have a different past. It's only in their co-creations and from the present to the future where true understanding is present, because the soul demonstrates its action, its responsibility levels, how much it cares, how much it acknowledges its own flaws, its own immaturity, its own ignorance. Do you know? That means it's like it's realizing how foolish, thinking that you're perfect is, for example, and realizing, wow, it's all about what I compare myself to, and if there's one view of imperfection, then in some sense, it's like the transcendental OCD kicks in, and the person's like, why did my eyes see a flaw if I was assuming it in a perfect world? It's like it's pretty much like the meaning you give to phenomena. It's honestly, I don't want to say we're gambling meaning over form, but I think it's fascinating how within our awareness reality animates into meaning, but beyond our awareness we can also notice that it's like truth is present in greater ways than we are present now. That's obvious. The whole point of it is, why are we simulated? Why are we inside a simulation? How is the simulation behaving? And the simulation has nowhere to go or be aside from being in the presence of the original. So it's kind of like, rather than there's death, it's like the simulated dissolves into the original, or for an intelligent being, the human soul on earth meets the system admin afterwards. And the content of its character, that means how you conducted yourself in a simulated realm. Did you just live in accordance to the values of the body? Did you live only in accordance to the values of the mind? Did you realize that there is the values of your heart? Did you realize there's more unknown than the known? Did you realize that because things can be lost, there's reverence, beauty, magnificence, majesty? There's greatness because there's an possibility of not being great. You know, there's like, yo, man, what's great about not being great? You can still be great. And it's all about a challenge with ourselves. On some level, I'm trying to prove my past selves what they were missing. And I believe the psyche of the species would be the same. You don't understand. Advancement is like a great organized force. So if you look at this nature, it's like natural law is organizing reality, but for someone who's religious, divine command is organizing natural law. So the purpose of natural law is not to be, it's to be a specific format. That means too many simulations have aligned in such a rare way that it's intentional. I know that it's intentional. The human design. It's made for a function. Like we have separate bodies and we have mouths and ears. Why so specific? An apple is sized to the shape of our hand. Why so specific? Do you know? So there is, to me, a constant fascination where honestly, these 12,000 days of life has been just like every day I'm an explorer of what I haven't seen about the world yet. Anyways, folks, you know, acknowledging your limitations is key. And to acknowledge your limitations is not to be defined by them, but to wonder why they're there. And you'd be fascinated in discovery of sometimes your change may conceptually shift. Sometimes the context may shift. The moment King Arthur, let's say, fictionally pulled that sword out of the stone, the moment the stone released the sword, it was like the moment where he shifted from the context of like some random dude to the king of fictional England. You know. So the fiction to the fictional king of England. You know. So what I'm saying is, it was as if like the moment he did something, it changed the context, and then his concept changed, or he could have acted like king before even pulling the sword. So what I'm saying is, it's very fascinating how, like, our self changes and the concept changes, the concept of self and the context of world are changing. If the world changes faster than you feel like you're being pulled by life. When you change faster than the world, you feel like you're being pushed by life. Okay? Like human beings who have a purpose, they're kind of like making a selection of which sector of reality to zoom in on, right? Anyways, guys, I guess, does it make sense to assume our solitude's comfort with others? I think no, because in that solitude can never be reciprocated, because that solitude is like something hidden. Only your DNA has access. So at some point, the feeling of, yo, man, I'm looking for someone to understand my past should leave. Like, you shouldn't have that attitude, I think. And the attitude should be like, who can I build with in the future? Do you know? That means, you guys, you don't get it. They've conditioned us to just treat ourselves as nouns that base their emotions only based on their past. When you realize your emotions can be based on the future you, it's as if you're always young when you're looking at the future, younger than the future, you know, and older than the past. Like, if right now the human lifespan was like 1,000 years, like being 100 years old was like, yo, look at that child. It's like you're just 300 years old. You're just a teenager. Let's say out of like, what, like 130. 110 and 120. Yeah. Anyways, whatever. Guys, wonder about reality and just help us advance this place while we're here. You know, this is really it. That we advance civilization and we advance humanity, and it even fits the theological lens because we are serving God's creation. That means if people can be evil to one another, they could be good, but they could all be advanced. Advanced means imagine 8 billion beings, they suddenly became aware of all their blind spots. That would be like such an intense activation of genius on Earth. Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.